Good morning, everybody. Natalie coming to you live. Spread on coffee. Got my coffee here. Yum, yum, yum. Mm-hmm. Oh, so good. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely coffee. And super excited because my mother is very cute and she likes to do the 12 days of Christmas. And so she bought me pajamas that say coffee is my lover. Anyway, that was her 12 days of Christmas and they're yellow. And I got ready and I feel like they're cute clothes. So I'm just going to wear it as an outfit. Why not? Okay. 2020 quarantine, we do whatever we want. We can wear pajamas to work if we choose. You wouldn't even know. Oh, Lord. That's funny. As long as you got the cute pajamas, then nobody would know. I mean, like this, you couldn't tell. Even if you saw the hearts, you wouldn't know. You'd think it was just a nice, cute shirt, but really it's a whole pajama outfit. Okay. So I got ready and wore my new pajamas and I feel comfortable and cozy. All right. So we are on the introduction of this beautiful book, Healing Through Dark Emotions, The Wisdom of Grief, Fear, and Despair by Miriam Greenspan. And we've been sort of diving into the dark emotions. What does it mean? And what does it take for us to overcome those dark emotions, which is super critical in this time. Just because of what we're going through. I mean, everybody's going through sort of the dark night of the soul. The cosmos itself are going through the dark night of the soul. People are questioning their internal world and really looking at their internal world. Like, is my internal world the way that I choose it to be? Or is it not showing up the way that I want it to be? And how do I start to create the world that I want to see, right? And it's up to us to be the ones to do that. And so Healing Through Dark Emotions, super important book, really awesome. And I highly encourage that you get it for yourself so that you can read it. But I also, will be reading it here, although it'll take probably 5 years to get through the book because I talk a lot. Good morning, Bess. So let's get started. And as you know, we were talking about grief, right? And this man who wants to get through grief, he wants to stay married, but his fiance saying, "Hey, look," or his fiance, I'm sorry, his wife is like, "I'm gonna leave you." And he goes to see a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist says, "Look, you've got to get through the grief and the passing of your ex-wife because his ex-wife passed away." And he literally is saying, "No, I want to get rid of it." But we don't get rid of the pain and the grief. Even if you lost an animal, sometimes we have even pets that we love that pass on the grieving process, right? And we hold on to that as well. So this is not just about human grieving another human being, although that one is the worst, especially if it's your lover. Like, that's hard, or your parents or someone very close to you. But pets as well, right? Pets are loyal. These dogs are. And so that can be the grief either, but not getting through it and not allowing ourselves to go through that process. Okay. So as a result, when we are deluged by dark emotions, we are rarely in shape for dealing with them. We find ourselves adrift in the sea, overwhelming feelings without the ability to swim, and no life raft in sight. Just when we think we need the biggest painkiller we can get, we find out that even Prozac won't simply remove our suffering. And that's the thing. Eventually, we're not able to get over that particular suffering. And not even numbing out anymore works, right? We have to deal with it. Good morning. If you're on here on Facebook, say good morning. It doesn't show me who's on here anymore. Totally drives me nuts. But I'd love to say good morning to you. Good morning, Rick. Oh, it's Rick. Good morning. Okay, distracting ourselves from emotional pain may work well enough for most of our garden variety displeasures, so long as life doesn't slam us on the head. But sooner or later, we all get slammed. Your wife dies of cancer. Your husband at midlife runs off with a younger woman. You lose your job. Your child becomes ill. You're assaulted or raped. Memories surface from being sexually abused as a child. You're diagnosed with a serious disease. Your mother dies. Your father dies. Your cat dies. Or perhaps it's none of these. Perhaps it's many people today are deeply aware of living in a world that is both dangerous and endangered. An environment that triggered the dark emotions on a daily basis. Perhaps not personal adversity, but awareness of enormity of pain in the world and of danger to our planet itself is a source of our grief, fear, and despair. Or perhaps you feel these emotions and don't know what to connect them to or how to cope with them. So again, it's a slew of different things that show up or surface in our life, right? Because we go through grief all the time. Maybe you're ill, maybe it's a grandparent, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a whatever it is. And so going through those emotional states, right, where it's too much, but everybody goes through it. And eventually we have to go through it. We can't deny it anymore. It's not something that we can just say, this is done and that's that. It resurfaces within us, okay? Our culture exhibits a curious ambivalence towards such emotional pain. On the one hand, it teaches us to control our pain or medicate it. On the other hand, we are urged to feel, express, or release our emotions. That's a big one. So the emotional pain, and if we looked at the Western culture society, right, it teaches us to control it or to medicate it, to numb it out. And this can be mental pain, but also physical pain as well. I mean, the physical pain, sometimes it's too much. Like I was in pain. So I'll talk about physical pain, right? Physical pain, I know that we're talking about emotional pain, but if we relate it to physical pain, there was a point where I just couldn't take it anymore. I was like, I'm in so much pain for 8 hours straight, piercing, right? And I was able to tolerate it for that long. And finally, I threw up everywhere. Like my body couldn't handle the pain. That's how bad it was. Eventually, it just threw up because it was too much. And I was like, I need something, right? I need something. Because we're trying to escape it. We're trying to escape that unease, right? That disease, right? An emotional pain that we feel sometimes. We'll do anything to get rid of it. And we try to control it and act like we have control over it rather than surrendering to it and letting it be. Not easy, because I've surrendered to physical pain too, and that is oof. Not good. Okay, so let's go forward. Get a hold of yourself, get a grip, stay in charge. These metaphors are management and control, illustrate that we believe it to be the positive way to deal with negative emotions. We must manage feelings that would otherwise be destructive. Our distrust of dark emotions has been heightened by recent mind-body research that concludes that negative emotions are bad for you, contributing to life-threatening illness, from asthma to cancer to cardiovascular disease to immune system disorders. By and large, this research neglects to distinguish between emotions that are experienced mindfully, that is, full experience in the body in a direct, open way as they occur, and those that are not mindfully experienced or have become stuck in the body. So people have talked about this over and over again, your emotional states getting stuck in your body, causing you to get sick. So, and you think about it, the reason why is if you're holding in energy rather than allowing it to come out, it starts to toxify your body. It starts to toxify your mind, right? And then when your mind goes into stress, there are physical reactions that happen within the body. And people know this. Or when you're depressed or sad, there is an emotional trigger or response in the brain, in the body. There's a chemical reaction. The neural firings in the brain release chemicals that cause different things to happen, and then you trigger either the sympathetic or parasympathetic system. If you're triggering your sympathetic system, right, you're in total stress and you can start to release cortisol into the blood. All these different hormones start to secrete, and that changes the very nature of your body and your experience. So we know that too much of these particular hormones in the body is going to cause illness, right? Or not enough. So the regulation is what's important. How do we self-regulate? And really, that's what it boils down to. And that's what I loved about my class. We talked about self-regulation. Self-regulation is not control. Self-regulation doesn't say I have control over all my emotional states and I'm going to be in control. That's not what it says. Self-regulation is, it allows us to manage our emotional states of being. I just saw this now, Rick. December 30th will be 1 year that my mom passed. I'm so sorry. That has to be hard. I'm very close to my mom and my parents. And yeah, that's so prayers to you. And I hope that you allowed yourself to go through those emotional states of being. The self-regulated states of being, meaning that we don't control it, but we allow ourselves to be with it, right? We sort of surrender to the emotion for self-regulation of the emotion. And self-regulation also talks about tolerance and what we can tolerate and not. And as we start to support ourselves to regulate these dark emotions, our tolerance gets a little bit bigger, meaning that we don't have these tiny little micro explosions of energy. We can actually tolerate it a little bit longer, be with it, and allow ourselves to go through the process, right? And then we can release it in a way that is not going to harm us or harm others. So self-regulation is really what we're talking about, not control. And if you do see, doctors or whatever, this is like I was talking last week about people being crazy. They just don't know how to self-regulate. And so automatically, right, they're told, oh, let's just take pills. That'll regulate you. And really, does it support? No, it doesn't support. It just numbs out. It's not a true regulation. It's not regulating your emotional states of being. You have the power within you. Now, here's the deal. If you were raised in an environment where you were not allowed to self-regulate your emotional states of being, you're not going to be practiced. And if you're not practiced, it's going to look crazy to other people who are practiced, perhaps. Or the ones that are hiding it are going to say, what's wrong with that person trying to practice their self-regulation? They have issues. The way that I can say that I do this, so I have my niece, right? My niece, she lives with us. And the way that I allow her to self-regulate is I'll tell her something, and if it triggers her or if it upsets her, I don't pick and poke. I just let her be. I'm like, deal with it. And then when you're ready to talk, we can talk. But to let her have her experience, to self-regulate, to come back, to be able to process, to be able to reflect on the experience, and then take complete responsibility for the experience. But that allows you to have an open space to communicate from a place of personal responsibility, not blame and shame, like, oh, it's your fault. But coming back and saying, okay, I understand why I was triggered. I understand why. But it does take an individual who's willing to be open to that process for you. That's why we have good friends, right? Hopefully you guys have good friends. Just like raise your hand, put some love hearts or something if you know that you have good friends. I'm going to do this because I have lots. I'm going to do thumbs and I'm going to do hearts. And those of you on Podbean, you can just say yes. But for those of you who have good friends, right? Those are the friends that you go to self-regulate. Be like, I need someone to talk to. Not to say this person's bad. So if any of my friends have a conversation with me, yes, I'll be like, they did this, this, this. And people be like, do you want me to do something? And I say, no, that's not what it's about. I don't want harm on an individual. I just need to get through the process. And then I'm going to figure out what was available for me through that understanding or that learning. And then after that, saying it's not that they're a bad person, they just, maybe they weren't for me. And that's okay. That's not a problem. Not everybody has to be for me. Not everybody has to be for you, right? We have our people, and that doesn't mean we don't love them. Again, this is boundaries, loving at a distance, right? So we're still able to go through that emotional process to self-regulate our emotional states of being. Now, if it's a loss or grieving, it's allowing yourself to go through that grieving process. So hopefully, Rick, you went through that grieving process, and you're always going to go through it. I mean, I literally have gone through great loss in my life, so I understand loss very well. And at a very pretty young age, I lost my high school sweetheart. We were together for 8 years, and 8 years is a long time to put up with somebody. We put up with each other. I mean, it was crazy, but it was that young love, innocent love where you totally fall completely 100 billion%, don't even know what you're doing. And for it to get ripped away, right? That right there, that process of going through something like that was not easy. It's still not for me. I still, after, I don't even know, I'm not going to say how long it's been. It's been very long. That's my age, but who cares? That even after that time, there's still a process that you go through. But the grieving process and allowing yourself to go through it, having people to talk to be able to communicate completely what is going on with you. And then from a place of personal responsibility is really just owning the feeling and the sensations and the sadness and all of it. And not saying that it's wrong, but just saying that it is. It's a part of our experience here. It's just our experience here. I mean, that's life. And I know it's scary for some people, some people are like, I don't want to lose these people in my life, or I'm not even ready to go. Some people are afraid of death for themselves. Like, I just want to be immortal and stay here forever. Like, what happens, after this, or what if there's not an after, and they ponder those questions. So faith is a big thing for me. I have always had faith, and God and I are besties. So that's like my bestest friend in the world. And so for me, there's no fear, but the fear of losing someone you love sometimes is stronger, right? There's still that how do you accept the fact that you may lose the people you love? So what do you do? So what do? I tell people I love them all the time. I make sure that I tell people I love them. I don't like to leave things unresolved. That takes I'm going to communicate to this individual to make sure everything is said. But does that mean that I don't go through a grieving process? No, we all do, right? So it is what it is. It's life. And more than ever now, even with this whole pandemic and everything, people are afraid of death even more, right? They're afraid of death. Good morning, Breezy. They're afraid of death, not just for maybe themselves, but for their loved ones, right? Because they're like, well, I'm okay if something happens to me, but what about my parents, or what about, and there's that fear of oh, could I cause their finality, right, of ending that life or whatever it is. So it's still the fear of death, and there is that fear, and it is what it is. It's part of life. It's part of the circle of life. And we have to go through the grieving process, but nobody's just sitting there saying, hey, I want to go through this grieving process now. Yes, just give it to me. I'm ready. No one's ever ready. Who's ready? No one's ready. And that's the thing. So how we spend our time and how we communicate with the people we love is critical. It's even with my family, it's trying to say, hey, look we're going through some hard times right now. Maybe we don't all agree, but I love you and I'm here for you. And, because you don't know, life is very fragile. Okay. And, so we all go through the grieving process. We all have that process. It is what it is, but there's ways to actually engage it. There's ways to move through it. And you're not alone, because every single buddy, I like that parable where it's not parable, but the story that said the lady was like, I want my son back. I really want my son back. And it was like, okay, well then I want you to go to the village and I want you to collect mustard seeds, and for every household that hasn't lost somebody or hasn't experienced loss, hasn't experienced death. And the lady doesn't come back with one and then realizes, oh, we all have to go through it. I mean, that's powerful, right? It's powerful to remember. But for us, it's like, but I don't want to. But it's part of life. It's here. So if it's here, and that's why I do Spirit and Coffee, because from a spiritual alchemy perspective, again, we use everything. We don't deny anything. We don't say that it doesn't exist. There could be, religions and other things out there that say, and they're not right, wrong, good, or bad. However, they're missing part of the puzzle. To just say that we can just be happy. Oh, we're just going to be happy. We're just going to get rid of all these emotional states that make us suffer and not happy. But that's not reality. We're just pretending that it doesn't exist when it does. So it's, how do we utilize it again? How do we utilize it? And that's why people continue to go to get counseling. That's why people will continue to go to these gurus, we go all these places trying to figure out what to do with these emotional states that make us uncomfortable. And we don't know. And that's why I could talk for the rest of my life on Spirit and Coffee and it never get old, because everybody is looking for the answer of release of suffering. That's really what it's about. I mean, think about it. When we go to church, right? The salvation of our souls about what? We don't want to suffer. We don't want to suffer in the afterlife. We're suffering enough here. Do we have to go to hell? I don't want to go to hell. How do I not go to hell? I don't want to suffer. When is the suffering end? And so we do these things because we don't want to suffer. And we're constantly looking to different, tools and listening to different podcasts and reaching out to different people. And really what we're trying to do is alleviate the suffering of financial whatever. Maybe we're in a financial crisis and we can't pay our bills and we're suffering from finances, or maybe we lost somebody. Whatever it is, we're trying to escape it and we can't. The fact is we don't escape it. And that's the biggest secret, one of the biggest secrets that they've hid from us over ages, is that they've tried to just put perfume on what our shit. Excuse my language, but they've tried to put some perfume on it, and you can only put perfume on shit for so long. You're gonna run out of perfume and the shit's gonna keep piling up. And then before you know it, you're like, you gotta face it. And you're like, damn, I have a whole lot of poop to sorry, guys are probably like, I don't want to hear about poop, but it's true. It's like our bag of poop, So what do we do with it? We learn to transmute it. So the way look at it, think about it as we have waste. Oh, what's happening here? We have waste. Oh, my camera died. Darn it. I don't know if you guys can still hear me. Can you guys still hear me on Podbean? I mean, on Facebook? Just put a hearts if you could still hear me. It might be black, but then you guys can still hear. I think you guys can still hear me without a camera. But what do we do with the waste, right? You could still hear us? Okay, you can still hear me? Okay, cool. Well, with the waste, what happens is that it comes back and what does it do? It fertilizes, right? It fertilizes. And it fertilizes the ground. So if you thought of your dark emotions as poop, it's not the best thing to think of, but it is. It feels poopy. It doesn't feel good, right? It doesn't feel good to lose somebody you love, or it doesn't feel good to be rejected by people. It doesn't feel good to not feel like you don't belong, or isolated or ostracized, or whatever's going on. It doesn't feel good, right? So what do? We use the poop to be our fertilizer for a better day, to fertilize the trees. We don't let it grow weeds and then get out of control. but we still need fertilizer, and that is our fertilizer. So if you thought of it from that perspective, right, you can say, wow, how do I use these dark emotions to fertilize a better way of living, a better way of existing, a better way of being? So this is how you do it, right? You say, okay, I'm going to allow myself to befriend this. I'm going to allow myself to move through it. I'm going to allow myself to surrender to it. And let it be the fertile ground, right? Thanks, Breezy. Yeah, I try to use different ways of describing things. People, I think for us in New Mexico, we have a deeper, maybe, and I'm not going to say around the world, but just in New Mexico, we have a deeper connection to like nature and to, agriculture. I think most of our families probably come from agriculture, and so those kind of analogies, I think, sit in better for us, for me too, where we say the fertile ground, right? How do we fertilize to grow and harvest the fruit, right? The fruit. And the fruit is what? Whatever it is, whatever we're seeding. Could be happiness, could be joy, could be excitement, could be pleasure. So we allow ourselves to use the emotional states of being as fertilizer for our emotional states that drive action forward. Now, here's the deal. And I was reading this when, throughout my emotional intelligence class for my master's program, that the reason why anger is such a huge, I don't want to say issue, but what they focus on and why it could become problematic, right? When it gets to the point is because out of all of those emotions, that's the one that acts out in violence, acts out to hurt others. So we want to be able to transmute that energy into something that's meaningful for our life. So being it the fertile. So if you've been rejected, okay, or you've lost somebody, and I think that perhaps rejection would be a bigger one that caused more anger or whatever it is, or isolated or not worthy or whatever it is, that you've been left out of something. And whenever you're left out of something, it triggers a response of frustration or disconnect. Allowing yourself to go through that emotional state and process. And when the energy wants to surface and arise out of you in action, that you refocus it on something that's important for you, something that you're working towards, a goal, rather than holding it in and allowing it to stay there. And then as it stays there, it starts to bubble up within you. And as it bubbles up, then it continues, and then it comes out as anger and frustration. And that is going to cause harm to who? To you, to others. So it's saying rather than having yourself get to the point where you're acting out in rage, that you allow yourself to feel the emotional states that have come to surface anger. So it could be frustration. It could be fear of something. Sometimes we have to fight, right, through fear, and we become angry, and that's the best way we know how to handle it. Again, rejection, that's a huge one. Shame, unworthiness, all of those things. That is your fertilizer. What is it fertilizing? It's fertilizing you to be in action eventually. Towards what? Towards your divine purpose, your divine will. Otherwise, you're letting your pride and ego, instead of driving. Now, here's the deal. We have pride and ego no matter what, but we're allowing our ego to be in the driver wheel rather than working with the ego. We're letting the ego control us. It's not that we control the ego, because we could try to control it, but I think we work with the ego. It's working with the ego, saying, okay, look, you're with me, okay? You're my friend, okay? We're going to be friends. And that's what it's saying. I'm going to be friends with my ego. And I'm going to tell my ego, look, if we're going to be friends, we're going to do things that are good. And when you start to bubble up a little bit further than me and you start to act like you're going to take control of the wheel, I'm going to say, no, we're going to work together. We're going to figure this out together. And because the ego, full on ego, that is in, I would say, the sacred masculine on the shadow side comes out as violence and war. And so sometimes we have that in us where we're like, I'm going to go, because I can get triggered too. I still have New Mexican in me. I'm just kidding. I still get that rage where someone does something to my mom, right? It's like, oh, I'll punch your face in. Like, that's how I feel sometimes. Like my mom, like I'm protective of her, right? So I'm like instantly. And then I'm like, Natalie, no, you're not going to punch somebody's face in. But I would if they really messed with my mom, right? I'd be like, no, this is not going to happen, or my family. But rather than get violent, it's like looking at yourself and saying, okay, how do I utilize this information for myself in a better way, right? In a way that I can support myself and my family and perhaps a lesson. And this just happened. I know, Breezy, it's funny because we were like, oh, you're so nice. I'm like, yeah, but I could be crazy if I have to. Talking to the parts of yourself really does work, as crazy as it sounds. It does. It really does. And I'll close with this. So this happened. We went to a park and my mom, these people at the park, we had food. We were going to have a picnic. And my mom we decided to switch tables because it was too cold in the shade. So we wanted to be in the sun. So start walking and these group of people were sitting at the only table under the sun. They weren't eating. They were just drinking alcohol. I don't know what they were doing. And one of the girls had a dog. And the dog charged at my mom, and my mom fell. Like he hit my mom, she fell over. And instantly I was like, oh my God, my mom, I hope she's okay. She's older, she's not young, and she looks young and she's vibrant and stuff, but she's still older, even though she wants to stay looking young forever, and she does, but she's older. So I was worried about her. And so the people, hey, Lingalanga, the people on the table, they started to laugh, and I instantly turned and I was ready to charge at these people. I was like, that is not funny. I told him that is not, I don't think that's funny at all. And then they just kind of stopped laughing. And then one of the older ladies, she was a little older than the rest of those. Anyway, she kind of freaked out, and then she said, are you okay? Are you okay? And then my mom was like, yeah, I just kind of, and yes, girl, I was going to go crazy. She's just very lucky. My mate, Natty. Yes. Lingalonga, by the way, I've been wanting to get on, but you get on when I'm asleep. You start playing live when I'm asleep. You got to go a little earlier. And so I can hear you. I loved listening to your music, by the way. And so I was really pissed, and I was like ready to, I don't know, act out in rage. But rather than that, I just took a breath. The lady came over, and then she's like, you guys can have our table. And I said, okay. They were trying to be nice after they felt really bad. And so after that, we were fine. But my instant reaction was to go over and punch these people in the face I was gonna punch him in the face. That's how fast your anger can get turned on. Right? But anger acts in violence. Anger wants to act out. So rather than doing that, right, it's like I can breathe and maybe take a little run, or just walk around, or pace around, or release the energy in some way. I would have went crazy. Yeah, we must grow and change. I'm still working on my loca side. Breezy, it's okay. I'm crazy too. Hate to close to love. Oh, let's see. He is close to love. Yeah, it is, Linga. It is. You turn your that's what I'm talking about. It's really just turning that rage and that And it's not really hate, it's more like anger for me. I don't really hate anything. Um, and so, I'm happy for you, Beauty. Yeah. It's true, from 0 to 100 real quick. Amen, sister friend. That's how I feel. 0 to 1. I said you want to get me mad really quick because it takes me a lot. I'm a very even like my emotional states are pretty even, right? But it takes me a long time to start to, feel that anger bubble up within me. And it takes me a very long time to get angry at somebody. I'm that's not my natural state of being. But to instantly, hey, Auntie Christine, how are you? I haven't seen you in a while. For instantly to go from 0 to 100, it's my family, right? Our traffic. You can get me off in traffic, but I don't charge it anybody. I just cuss by myself in the car, which is kind of funny. I just laugh at myself, but my family, don't mess with my family, and that literally from 0 to 100 go crazy. What? And then it's like, okay, I need to like calm down. I need to take a breath. I need to, and that kind of stuff. So just learning, right? That's it. Learning how to turn that rage into something meaningful for us, and maybe not even allowing it to surface or go all the way there. So that's that. I'll continue reading, and I think that the reason the camera went out is because I didn't put the new battery in there for to charge. So I'm glad you guys are still able to hear me, at least on here, for the rest of the time. But I love you guys, and it's Monday. So have a magical, magnificent, marvelous Monday. And salud to you guys. Cheers. Love and light always. God bless you. And I will see you guys tomorrow with making sure that I have the camera. I swear, these technical difficulties, I need I need someone who understands technology to help me here. Oh, Lord. I'll get it right someday. Okay. So I love you guys. Have a great day. And again, I will be seeing you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.